What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Faithful Phanatics Show. As always, I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DylanJD98. And to my right is my faithful co-host, Matt_McGinty on Twitter. Give him a follow as well. And of course, we are brought to you by DSM Media. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the page, head on over to at DSM_media on Twitter. Click the link in our bio, and you can find all our social media platforms right in there, whether it's you want to listen to the audio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, or you want the visual with YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok. We are on every social media platform. So tap in to at DSM_media on Twitter. Gint, first of all, man, how's your weekend? It feels like we got to get back on track with Phaithful as far as a set schedule. We've been a little off, but I think since last week, since our last show, the Sixers have played 4 games and they're 3-1 over those 4 games. So we'll have a lot to discuss when it comes to them. Obviously, Woj kind of not a Woj bomb, but he dropped a little nugget on Twitter that got people excited on Friday, saying that over the last couple of days, the Ben Simmons trade talks have kind of geared up and things are heating up a little bit. The Eagles coming fresh off the bye week. Obviously, the Washington football team loses to Dallas. So that puts them, the Eagles, both at 6-7 with their matchup at the Link this Sunday. And we'll talk about all that. But how was your weekend?
It was a good weekend. Obviously, the bye weeks get a little boring, but NFL pretty much went the script. Wasn't a ton of upsets at all that I can remember off the top of my head. Villanova lost yesterday in embarrassing fashion, so that kind of sucked. But Sixers beat the Warriors on, what was that, Saturday? So that was a great win. Obviously, Curry didn't break the record, which is
hold on. Cool. Let's start there. Did you really think he was going to break the record on Saturday night?
No, I thought there was no chance.
But it was highly talked about it and anticipated by some people. And then, let's hope he doesn't break the record. He's not splashing 10 threes at the Wells Fargo Center tonight.
Yeah,
I really didn't think that was a question.
I said Ben would have came out of retirement and prevented it before it happened.
Of course, he had to go there. But yeah, man, the Sixers are fresh off of keeping history still in check, not allowing Steph Curry to do that. As Joel Embiid said, this is his house. This is his city. He wasn't about to let that happen and let history be made in his house. They're fresh off of a big win after taking 2 in Charlotte from the Hornets. Obviously lost to Jazz, thrown in the middle of all that as well, that we'll talk about. But let's start with the Eagles today. Again, they're coming off the bye week. Obviously, a few short weeks ago, Jalen Hurts had his worst performance as an Eagle in his short career. He doesn't play the next week due to injury. All the question marks, the controversy comes up. Minshew and the offense look good. Then they head into the bye week. How big? Let's start with the quarterback itself because we know he's going to start. How big is this game for Jalen Hurts in itself, just as far as he's concerned? Forget playoff hopes for the Eagles.
So break it up into 2 parts. First part being, how big is it for him in terms of maybe putting this, like you said, controversy in quotes, dead? That'd be a huge step. I think if you come out and have a good game Sunday against Washington, who before this week looked like they were picking up a little bit of steam, I think that'd be huge for his morale and confidence in himself after you just watch Gardner Minshew toast a bad defense. But you don't like to see that when you're off the field if you're a starter, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And then for the Eagles' chances, I mean, these next 4 games are obviously make or break. You probably have to go 3-1. So your quarterback's got to be at his best at this point in the season, like we saw in the past with our previous quarterback when he turned it on in the last 4 weeks of the season, Carson Wentz. So it's that time where your quarterback has to step up.
It's so interesting, and it's going to be so interesting in this final stretch because you're going to have to see a different version of Jalen Hurts in the final 4 games than you've seen all year long. You're going to have to see a different version of Jalen Hurts than you saw in the 3-game win streak or the 3 out of 4 game win streak when they beat up on the Lions and the Saints and them. Because this is when you're down to the last month of football like this, and you got 4 straight division rivals, 3 out of 4 are at home on your own turf, I believe. And you're fighting with one of those division rivals for a wild card spot, that final wild card spot. In fact, it's essentially playoff football. The last 4 games turn into playoff atmosphere, playoff football, and in playoff football, to me, you have to get things done with your arm as a starting quarterback in this league. And you're going to have to see Jalen Hurts be different. You're going to have to see Jalen Hurts take the next step in his short career as an Eagle through the air and with his arm. And hopefully he went back, he saw, and he learned from his mistakes in the Giants game, because it wasn't just, he doesn't have the arm, but it was also decision-making that game and not processing and reading the field. So he's got to be on his A game against Washington this Sunday, and that's where it starts again. But you're right. I don't see any way, shape, or form the Eagles can go any less than 3-1 in the final 4 weeks. You're fighting with Washington. Obviously, if you split with Washington and you're both 6-7 right now, sure, Washington could drop another game if the Eagles pick up a game against the Giants or Dallas, and maybe it still works out. But for my money, you got to beat Washington both times. And then you got to beat the Giants at home after you just lost to that putrid team on the road. Mike Glennon's starting right now. I don't know if Daniel Jones will be back in time or you're going to get Mike Glennon that week. But the Eagles, for my money, have to go 3-1. Obviously, with our loss presumably being against the Cowboys. But yeah, that's a great starting point as far as expectations for the Birds go coming out of the bye week.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. The Cowboys game will get interesting if, for some reason, they have a seed
if they have it locked up.
That was where things could get almost like last year when the Giants were really upset to see Jalen Hurts come out of the game. You can almost see something like that in terms of maybe getting in by squeaking out a win there. But I do agree. I think the Washington football team games have to be 2-0, and you absolutely have to take business against, whether it's Mike Glennon or Daniel Jones, in the link against a team that you had a dud against a couple weeks prior.
Well, it's so confusing to me because we should be able to sit here confidently at this point and say they stink. Washington stinks. Dude, I know they made a cute comeback at the end of the game yesterday against the Cowboys. They had a pick 6 against Dak when he didn't see the linebacker over the middle. It was cute, right? Your boy stinks. That team stinks. They're battling injuries. They're battling COVID. I believe Jonathan Allen had just reported earlier that he's on the COVID list, so they could be without him this week. Obviously, Quez Watkins also for the Eagles went on the COVID list, so they could be without Quez this week. But obviously, if you're it's apples and oranges. Quez Watkins, Jonathan Allen to that Washington D line is a big loss. They're already obviously missing Chase Young out for the season, so that team stinks. The Giants stink. But at this point, we can't come out and be like, oh, yeah, they stink. The Eagles are going to win. Because I can't get a read on what Eagles team is going to show up every Sunday. I can't get a read if they're going to come out and look like they did against the Saints when I was there and they were moving the ball up and down the field every single possession. The defense is turning quarterbacks over. The defense isn't playing super soft as baby shit. 19 yards off the line of scrimmage, allowing just these dink and dunks up and down the field. I don't know what team's going to show up. So to me, Gint, if there's any playoff hopes for Eagles fans out there, it has to start this week. Like, to me, I feel like there's been a few weeks now in the middle of the season where we've come on and we've said, yeah, they're done after a loss, right? And then the next week, Washington loses, the Eagles win, and it's okay. They're right back in the thick of things. To me, in the Final Four, it starts with this Sunday. If you come out and you lose this Sunday to Washington, you have to hold me to this. We can never preface a show around the Eagles are back. The Eagles have a hope for playoffs, because we need to stop it. Because if you can't get it done this week, then your playoff hopes are down to this, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like the Phillies season with the amount of times we said, "Oh, it's done. It's chalked.
Right.
It's over." And then next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they go on this weird little stint. And next thing you know, we were back in. But I think you are right in essence of even if you have a dud this week and you lose, it's chalked. That's the best word for it. It will be interesting to see what Jalen Hurts comes out like. Who knows? What if Jalen Hurts comes out, throws for 250, and his arm looks great?
Well, then confusion just continues to pile up. Then I really don't know what the hell's going on, because I thought I pinpointed, you know what, this kid probably not it. I don't think he has the arm to be a starter in this league. And then he comes out, and if he finds a way to lead this team to a playoff, berth this year, that's a nice little step for a rookie year. And that argument of, before when I was saying, he wouldn't be my guy in 2022. Like, to me, this offseason is very important with the 3 first-round picks, et cetera, et cetera. if he comes out and they go 3-1, somehow go 4-0 in the final month of this year, and he leads them to a wild card berth, how do you sit here and be like, oh, you know what, he can't be the guy in 2022? And to me, that just makes everything all the more confusing. Like,
I agree. But
again, I think what people don't quite understand is it has to be done in a different fashion than how he's played all year long. This is playoff football. You're not going to beat Washington, especially when you play Washington twice in 4 weeks, Gint. Because they're going to know. They're going to know all about Jalen Hurts' tendencies and what he likes to do and where he likes to go. And, he doesn't want to roll out to his left. He wants to roll out to his right. And they're going to know all that. So Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat the Washington football team through the air. You're not going to be able to give the defense that confidence like the Giants had, where, oh, well, we figured if he's got to beat us down the field, then we feel good about winning this game. That can't be the case. And part of it's scary. But I think I think we're in for a fun final few games here, because you're going to learn a lot about this kid and if he's got the cojones to be the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You're going to see this kid that everyone proclaims is a gamer and such, right, and you're going to see it on the biggest stage at this point. You have a very, very good chance of making the playoffs if he can kind of wheel us down the stretch.
And you control your own destiny at this point.
100%. If you go 3-1, you'll make the playoffs. I mean, if you magically go 4-0, you'll make the playoffs. So I agree with that, but we could maybe get the other answer to that question. And it's, wow, let's move on.
Right. They could go 1-3 in the Final Four, and he could look horrible. And then we'll see. I don't want to be overly negative today, because they do have a great chance to make the playoffs. And speaking of this Washington game, before we move on here, because it's early in the weekend and we're going to have our set schedule this week, hopefully. So we'll be able to dive into this matchup as the week goes on. We're not going to get into Eagles, Washington today, 6 days until game day. But we do have an exciting announcement coming up this week. So tap into @DSM_media on Twitter to see where we will be live taking in Washington and Eagles this very Sunday. All right, Gint, shall we move on to the more exciting topic today?
I wouldn't even call it more exciting, but yeah.
No, you're not excited?
No.
Well, let me get a gauge on Matt McGinty right now. Where's Matt McGinty's excitement level when it comes to the 76ers right now?
It's so hard to be excited.
No, really?
It was fun. It was like a great win, and I want to be excited. But, dude, until something happens, this team is so ill-prepared to play anyone. And luckily we have Joel Embiid, and he's just wheeling us to victories left and right. Embiid's stat line on Saturday night wasn't even that good in terms of Joel Embiid numbers, and he still just dominated the game handily. It's amazing what he can do on both sides of the ball to impact the game. There's not many people in the NBA that can do as much as he can that can impact the game. But again, until a move is made, and we're hearing all these reports that it's come to fruition, this team's jumping in, this team's jumping in, it's just so hard to gauge where we're at and want to root for them and all that. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't want to root for them. I want to root for them. I want them to win every night, but I'm not as invested as I usually am, I feel.
You feel like we're kind of in a limbo right now. Like this team is what it is right now. These big wins over the Hawks, the win over the Warriors, it's good, it's fun and all, but it really means nothing, because if this is the team that's being put out in a 7-game series against one of these teams, we have no hope. All right. So that's where Matt's at right now. I'm a little I don't feel differently than you. I feel where you're coming from, because I would have to say the same, right? Like, I understand the Sixers have beaten the Hawks both times they played this year, but if this Sixers team goes out against a fully healthy Hawks team in a 7-game series, I feel like you're underprepared to win that series. And here's why. Again, I know everyone is over Ben. I am as well. But what we don't want to admit, or what a lot of people don't want to admit, is the Sixers are playing shorthanded. Every night they're playing shorthanded. Like, Tyrese Maxey is fun and it's exciting and it's new and we're watching him grow, right? And obviously, like, Niang and Drummond are different and they're better upgrades than Dwight Howard and Mike Scott in the backup 4 and 5 of last year, right? But this is essentially the same exact team as last year, minus a defensive player of the year candidate and minus an all-star. That's what they are. So it's a lot to ask of Joel Embiid to go out there every night. And like you said, his stat line wasn't that overly impressive against the Warriors. But when you're seeing what he's doing in Charlotte and how you see him will them to a victory against the Hawks and what you see him do for 2.5, 3/4 against the Jazz and keeping them in that game, they're shorthanded every night. And I guess my first question here is, at what point do you think you start to get annoyed with Daryl Morey? Because I'm not. I understand Daryl is sticking to his word, and he's saying we're not moving Ben just to move Ben. We need to get better if we move Ben. But if you're Joel Embiid, you're sitting here like, dude, I'm busting my ass every single night for you. I'm busting my ass trying to keep this team afloat, trying to keep this team alive and keep us in playoff contention. Go make a move while I'm in the middle of my MVP prime so we can actually try to do something here. I feel like I see you tweeted out after every win, Gint, like, great win. Now go get Joel help. That's what it's all about, because Tobias Harris hasn't been enough help this year. The bench, which started the season off great, and don't get me wrong, the bench played a key role in the win on Saturday night. The bench has greatly come back down to earth. Like George Niang, I'm still a huge George Niang guy. He's not what he was in the beginning of the season when he was dropping 16 off the bench and 21 night, right? Drummond's still a very nice backup for Joel Embiid, but he's not out there grabbing 18 boards and 12 points, right, in a starting role. Furkan, my God, we forgave Furkan for all his sins before, and it's like he just laughed at us and threw shit in our face because he might be worse than what we thought of him before. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat right now. Like, he's horrible right now.
Yeah, you're covering it perfectly because it's December 6th. They play Charlotte. Charlotte's without LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Plumlee, one of the 8 in the NBA. And Joel's got to play 45 minutes, score 40-something points to win. That can't happen. That's why we signed Andre Drummond. You were hoping to, not even if you have to give him off, but he has to play 25 minutes in one of those games. There's a ton of mileage on Embiid right now, especially because I feel like every single night goes to overtime at this point too, or is a close game where he has to grind out. It seems to be over 38 minutes a game, even in games that should be blowouts. So that's why, like you said, I've been tweeting it. It's like, when there has to be some sort of communication, I'm assuming, between Embiid, Morey, Doc, like, all right, we're gonna play this out. And it's like, Joel, you got to get us to this point, and I'll be able to do this, this, and this. Because guys free up in January, February. I know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can't be traded till January, February.
That's a long time, man.
I know. I agree.
Like right here, like this comment right here, I'd get annoyed with him after the trade deadline. That's 2 months away, I believe, from yesterday or something. Like, that's a long time for Joel Embiid to keep having to just put the team on his back every single night.
I totally agree. So it's going to get interesting. You keep hearing all these names are getting thrown in the hat of teams. The Knicks are making deals, and the Lakers want to make deals. And if Sixers fans want to see a guard that will shoot, and Russell Westbrook's available, well, there it is. I just
if you guys want a point guard that's not shy,
I'll tell you what,
I got one for you.
If we waited all this time and it ends in like Kemba Walker and Alec Burks, I'll cry myself to sleep. So
yeah, listen, Daryl, I know you must be a big fan of the show and you always watch us, but I know I've said I really wish the Sixers never got rid of Alec Burks when they made the deadline move for him and Glenn Robinson III. But that's not what I mean when I say move Ben Simmons. Get Alec Burks and Evan Fournier are not the return I'm looking for.
100%.
You know what's so funny? It's related, obviously, but it's like a little side conversation. Russell Westbrook, who I've always tried to defend, like I think Russell Westbrook is way overhated. But obviously I know what he's good and what he's not good at on the basketball floor, and the fit's just not it for the Sixers and Embiid. But like, I want no part of that. Like, no part. And I think 98.9% of Sixers fans are going to agree in this one. I haven't seen a lot of give me Russell Westbrook on this team, but like, for a guy that's probably getting a future Hall of Famer, right? At this point, no doubt about it. Like a walking triple double. I have no interest in a guy I've defended over his career.
No, and the whole first of all, him and Pete hate each other. That's all. that doesn't add up. So it again, the eyes are gonna keep coming out. It just seems like every other week at this point, it's like, oh, the talks are picking up, and then you hear Bradley Beal doesn't want to get traded, Damian Lillard's not getting traded, so
The
maybe
Sixers don't want CJ.
exactly, and Beal apparently doesn't want to sign a max, which is smart for him to see kind of where this season goes. But
let me rank these three names for me. Also, hold on. What was the interview or the thing rumor came out that said James Harden would not be opposed to playing for the 76ers?
I didn't
for Philadelphia. I saw it yesterday. Someone showed it to me when I was working. It was like I forget, in an interview. But let me give you three. Harden not included. SGA, Jaylen Brown, and Bradley Beal. In what order would
Jaylen Brown first, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander second, and Bradley Beal third? I think what Jaylen Brown could bring to you, if you're going to move Ben for him, is you're getting the same perimeter defense in terms of a guy that can go guard everyone's best player, who also can create off the bounce, can shoot, can play both sides of the ball really well. Gilgeous-Alexander can play a combo guard in terms of playmaking for everyone around him. Not that Bradley Beal can't do that, but I think he does that a little bit better, which might be able to get more out of Tobias Harris, more out of Seth Curry, and then Bradley Beal is just 31 points a night, ultimate bucket getter.
Right. I don't think Jaylen Brown's a likely landing spot, but it's just so intriguing when you hear. I literally read an article earlier today saying that there's a lot of people that believe the Brown Tatum duo in Boston is coming to an end, and after this season, well, if it's coming to an end, well, let's speed that process right the hell up. Now, let me ask you this. In my mind, I think it's something that Phil had thrown out there a long time ago. I think it's a 3-team deal, and the fact that Woj included that in his report the other day, that it's talks are heating up and Philly is gathering multiple teams for a 3-team deal. I think that speaks kind of to what's going to play out. What are your thoughts? You don't see any way, shape, or form where Ben gets swapped here for so and so and so and so, right?
No, I think it can happen. Especially with Indiana, things get really interesting with them, with Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, like kind of if they move away from the core that they have that has produced nothing.
Well, let me ask you that. What's your plan there?
Well, the Sixers would get LeVert most likely somehow in that package. Maybe like Sacramento gets Sabonis.
Okay, so you're saying 3-team deal?
It's an option I think with Indiana especially.
That's what I'm saying. I think a 3-team deal happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say a 3-team deal is probably more likely than a 2-team deal.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that's what I'm saying.
It seems like the Sixers' gauge of what they want compared to what other teams want to give directly isn't there. So you kind of have to mix and match pieces to make that work. And like I said, Indiana makes only sense for a 3-team deal because I don't see the Sixers entertaining Miles Turner's and Domantas Sabonis as a fit. But I think Caris LeVert's a really good fit.
Let me reel it back into the team that we have right now. When you see, obviously, Danny was dealing with injuries, a couple injuries earlier in the year, and, he was on a minute restriction or whatever. Doc was easing him back into things. And then you see him come back in the rotation, then he's back out. When you see the defensive performance of Thibault against Steph Curry the other night, and they obviously come away with a win, do you think you could start to see lineup changes with this team where Danny Green is a permanent bench player and Matisse Thybulle is inserted into the starting role more?
It's tough because I just think of the Boston game when Boston literally just wasn't guarding Matisse Thybulle and leaving him wide open, and B was just getting so many double teams, triple teams. And I don't think that's something Doc wants in terms of just having no one out there. But after the move, it might be a different story. But for now, I don't see why you don't just keep Danny Green in the starting lineup. 4 of those guys have started how many games together at this point?
Yeah.
And you're trying to make this fit with Maxey, it seems. So I don't think they should.
Again, and this is the biggest thing. If this kid improved offensively, there would be no question about it. He'd start on every team in the NBA if he could be a legitimate, league average 3-point shooter with his defense. He's just not that. And it's like, I don't know who I get more frustrated by watching, Furkan or Tease. He's a hard watch on the offensive end of the floor, dude. Like, hard.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit ago. It's to the point where we can't do this. Oh, well, when Matisse does this, Matisse, I think, is turning 25.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's due for a deal this summer. So eventually you may have to look at this and say, does Matisse Thybulle fit with Joel Embiid? And when you're talking about all these Ben packages, Matisse is probably a juicy prospect for a lot of people that can afford to
don't want to give up a star. But if Matisse is included, like
if you look at like a Golden State and let's say just perspective, the Wiggins move that people have talked about, they would want something like that because they can afford to have that. We can't because our center is just going to have two people on him the whole time, it seems.
Right.
So that's the thing with Matisse. We saw what he did Saturday night. We saw what he can be in terms of guarding literally the NBA's best at this point, Steph Curry. But if you're not an option to be a threat on the offensive side of the ball, we saw what happened against Atlanta last year when Ben wasn't a threat, and Ben is a much higher degree player than Matisse Thybulle. So,
well, I think that's something that people in our fan base like to pick and choose who gets a pass and who doesn't. Because Matisse doesn't get that pass with me, and I don't care. I know he's awesome, and he's probably the nicest dude in the world, and he's ridiculous defensively. And I'm not saying I'm just shipping Tease out of here. I know one was a first-round pick, one was in the mid-20s. I know one is a max player, one's a bench role player as of right now. I understand all that. You can't go off and criticize and call one dude every name in the book for not improving his offensive game and then just completely stay utterly in love, hopelessly in love with the big smile and Matisse Thybulle when he doesn't improve his offensive game. I understand Matisse is maybe, Matisse shoots the three, so he's more willing than Ben is because Ben won't shoot, right? But at what point do you show improvement? Because he hasn't. What's he shooting from three this year, Gint? Do you know? I mean, I could try to check, right? Let me see. Matisse Thybulle.
I think it's 29%.
Oh my God. It's 48. It's 48.5 from the field and 29.2 from three.
Again, you're not going to be.
This is about what? A full year, just about a year and a couple months of us doing the Phaithful Fanatic show. We've been praying and saying, if this dude could just shoot 36% from three, 37% from three, my God, imagine what he could be. Again, at this point, I'm like, if this dude could shoot 34% from three, 33% from three, I'd freaking take it. 29.2% from beyond the arc. But no, we choose to ignore what he doesn't progress on because we like the person. The other guy, we don't like the person, right? So we throw every name in the book at him because he didn't improve. And that's the part that I can't take with Philadelphia is let's hate him or love him and hate his deficiencies and shortcomings so far. Yeah, Ben Simmons is still a defensive player of the year candidate. Obviously, I know Matisse Thybulle was technically in that conversation last year as well, but Ben Simmons is an all-star. Ben Simmons does X, Y, Z, and W all over the basketball floor. Matisse Thybulle plays really good defense. You know what else Matisse Thybulle does? Well, not much. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Besides bringing an infectious smile to the floor, he brings nothing. Okay. Yeah. So let's stop. Like this fan base, they love to love mediocrity, and they just want to dig and dig and dig at the upper echelon. And listen, I want Ben out of here too. I'm not saying people are wrong for the Ben hate. It's got to go both ways though. And I've always said that, it's the Jalen Hurts conversation, right? You ran one quarterback out of town because of a bad season, but this kid gets every excuse in the book thrown at him. You love TJ McConnell, but you hate, whoever. people still call into sports talk radio and talk about how Embiid's this and Embiid's that. And like, it's annoying, man.
Agreed. And it gets really interesting down the stretch. Who's going to be finishing games? Because again, Matisse is awesome to have to guard league guards right now. But you're looking at Tyrese, you're looking at Seth, Danny. Dude, Shake Milton and Andre Drummond the other night were plus 20 together on the court. So now we're talking about, let's get Maxey to the bench. Let's bring in a guard. And it's like, well, Shake Milton has been great off the bench as of late. So what really do we do here? It's going to be interesting because, again, if you trade Ben for depth, you're bringing more people into this rotation. Right now, the rotation already seems pretty logjam. So
how long, speaking of that rotation, how long is it until Furkan's no longer in it?
I think the days are coming to an end. I don't see how you, especially again.
But that was our first offseason move, was to bring him back.
If you trade, like, again, let's say you trade Ben for DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Devin Vassell. Was just that's a random 3 names.
Sure.
All 3 of those guys play over Furkan. So unless it's a straight shot of Ben for somebody, I don't see how Furk gets a ton of minutes. I really don't.
Question.
But I said this last year.
Is there a chance we get rid of Seth? I don't think there's any chance. I know 0.01. I understand because people look at looking at the contract and how well Seth's playing. That's a nice throw-in piece to help out a Ben Simmons trade. Like, oh, here's Seth Curry on $8 million when he's averaging a career high 16 points per game and he's shooting 40 plus from 3. I get all that, but if I'm Daryl, I don't see any way, shape, or form Daryl Morey moves this dude on this deal with how well he's fit next to Embiid.
I'm also curious to see if other teams would want Seth before they'd want Matisse and Tyrese. I think he would be offered less out of those 3 from perspectives.
So again, real quick, before we get into predictions for tonight's game, and we'll get on up out of here because we do have a full week of shows to get to. You've been a big proponent of maybe people aren't going to like this. Maybe Tyrese should come off the bench. Just explain why and where that comes from so people understand, this isn't Tyrese Maxey hate. Tyrese needs to go to the bench. This is, okay, clearly we see how Tyrese Maxey looks when Joel Embiid is out with COVID or injury. And we see how Tyrese Maxey looks a little bit lost or hesitant or doesn't know what to do or where to go when Joel Embiid's on the floor.
So we talk about Ben, and we talk about bashing Ben and how Joel and Ben don't work because Ben doesn't shoot. And then you look at Maxey when he's playing without Embiid, and he looks like the guy everyone's like, oh, he should have been a lottery pick, this, that, the other. And for sure, he looks like that. He's able to get downhill. He's able to attack the rim. He's able to get to his strong suits, play really fast. When these guys are in the lineup, being Tobias and Joel, the game slows down a ton, and he doesn't get to play as fast as he wants. Well, when all those guys were out for COVID, and he's still playing next to Niang, Drummond, Seth, he's playing next to guys like that really fit his suit and let him attack the rim, let him just basically go wild. He looks his best, and the numbers are right here. In Maxey starts with Joel, he's averaging 13, 4, and 3 on 45% shooting from the field and 29 from 3. In the 3 he starts without Joel Embiid, he's averaging 23 points a game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 49% from the field.
Right. A lot more freedom.
Just a lot more freedom. The ball's in his court, so if you bring him off the bench, that's what he gets. Right. And don't get me wrong, that Tyrese Maxey is one of the 5 best players on the team, but that doesn't mean you have to start him.
Right.
It doesn't fit.
Right. And I think that's where this fan base gets lost in translation again, is they take that as a dig at Tyrese Maxey. It's quite the opposite. It's saying, here's what Tyrese Maxey does really well. I'm going to spoon feed it to you, right? Here, X, Y, Z. Joel Embiid, because here's the thing, and I know we still want him to play freely. Well, guess what? Any offensive possession, or let's say the Sixers inbound, or the Sixers grab a defensive rebound, right? And they get down the floor. Let's say Tyrese Maxey goes 100 miles an hour, gets to the rack like he does, doesn't get a foul call, misses the layup, goes the other way, right? What are we doing? We're freaking out because Joel Embiid hardly even crossed half court. We're freaking out because Joel Embiid didn't touch the ball. When Joel Embiid's on the floor again, like you said, how much slower? I would love to see, like, I don't know the numbers, but the pace between those Maxey numbers that you just gave compared to with Embiid and without Embiid on the floor, and with the pace the Sixers play at in those games as well and in those minutes as well, because every possession that Joel's involved in the set. Joel's either touching the ball.
As he should be.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not what the point guard is great at. And it's not, again, it's not a coincidence. And again, maybe they just need time. Maybe he's young, inexperienced, needs time. Who knows? Maybe that's it. We'll see. And with time will tell. But it's not a coincidence that not only are points per game down a little bit, Gint, not a little bit, but about 10 points. Assist numbers are down, rebounds are down. Activity overall is down for Tyrese Maxey when Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris are on the floor with them. So it's not a jab at Tyrese Maxey to say, okay, maybe he needs to run his own unit off the bench. Because honestly, Ben gets moved, right? We bring in a top 25 player. Let's say it's a shooting guard. Let's say whatever it is, right? Point guard. Tyrese Maxey goes to the bench. Tyrese Maxey gets to roam free with those guys, and our starting lineup gets a top 25 player with Joel Embiid who can run that kind of offense.
Exactly. And this is dating back to last year, too. Me and you talked about last year, well, where's the timetable with Maxey and this team? Because he's not a dagger shooter. We didn't really, when we had Ben at the time, we didn't really know where he stacked up with that. So just because he's not starting one doesn't mean he can't finish games. He's done a good job of finishing games in the past. So I don't know. That I've been on that train since the beginning.
He says it here. He came off the bench in the playoff series and looked really good against Washington as well. Now against Atlanta, he was young, rookie year. He looked a little overwhelmed in the Atlanta series, but the Washington series, he looked great off the bench. I believe it was the game we ended up losing, but Embiid, I believe, went down and Maxey played more minutes, and he gave the Sixers. He was a spark plug off the bench for the Sixers in that game. All right, Gint, before we wrap up,
Did
what's
you
up?
see how many guys are out for
Memphis?
Yeah,
a ton.
holy moly!
This needs to be a win.
Adams,
That's what I was going to say.
He's going to have 50.
This needs to be a win for the 76ers tonight, Gint. So, what are your thoughts on tonight's game?
I don't think they're going to win.
What?
Unless Steven Adams is in play. If Steven Adams plays, I took the Grizzlies tonight. I did. Dude, and it's not because the Sixers aren't a better team. The Sixers play to the competition that's in front of them. You just saw a win on Saturday night where they played with the best team in the NBA currently, top 2 NBA team, and I don't have that feeling with tonight. That's kind of where I'm at with the situation.
I can't wait to get my soundboard. I can't because I'm going to have about 3 different 3 different noises just made specifically for your negativity, and I was somewhat negative today.
Is it that negative?
I feel you. They play to the strength of their competition. They play down, they play up, depending on who they're playing. You beat the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. You beat the Warriors at home on Saturday, but you're in overtime and down to the wire against the COVID-riddled Charlotte Hornets.
I think Memphis is undefeated since John Morant went down or something. I think, or have a really good record. I don't know what
Pretty
exactly
impressive.
is. So you're looking at Tyus Jones, Desmond Bane, which is
former Duke Blue Devil, by the way.
Yeah, Tyus Jones, he stinks. Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams. You look at Memphis is deep. They play really tough. I think it's a bad matchup.
Let me throw the same game parlay at you. And you just mentioned Dylan Brooks. I no longer bet props for Dylan Brooks because I have bet 4 different times over the last month that Dylan Brooks will make 2+ threes, and he is yet to make 2+ threes in a game that I take that bet on. But here's this one for you again. Seth Curry plus 10+ points. Tobias Harris, what?
Just kidding.
Tobias Harris 15+ points. Joel Embiid 20+ points, which I'm a little iffy on because every time I bet. Okay, funny story for you. The Jazz game, everything else in my parlay hit. I had Joel Embiid 20+ points, 10+ rebounds. He finished with 19 and 9. Okay, so a little worried about the 20 here, but like you said, if Steven Adams is playing a third down bad, Joel should have no problem there. Seth Curry 2+ assists. Seth Curry has had 2 or more assists in every game in the month of December. Tobias Harris 6+ rebounds. Tobias Harris has not had under 6 rebounds in maybe since the start of the season. And then Desmond Bain, 2+ threes.
Yeah, the Desmond Bain thing gets really interesting. I think a lot of people, no, I shouldn't say a lot of people, the guys that really keyed into the draft when that happened, a lot of people I think thought the Sixers would have a chance taking Desmond Bain.
Mhm.
And he's been really good so far, or solid in his NBA career so far. And Tyrese Maxey, obviously, we took him over Desmond Bain. So that trilogy gets cool. That parlay is good, I guess. But no, if I took it, they'd all not get any of those stats. So I'm not going to do that to you.
Not going to tell me tonight.
No, for your well-being, you should say thank you.
I thought you were a good gambler.
Oh, yeah, right. No, I'm terrible, dude. If I take something, they just don't win. It's plain and simple.
All right. That's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the Phaithful Fanatic Show, guys. The Phaithful Fanatic Show and DSM Media are proudly brought to you by our friends over at Manscaped, guys. So head on over to manscaped.com. It is that time of year. It is Christmas time. So head on over and use code Fanatics. It's at the bottom of your screen right now. Promo code Fanatics for 20% off and free worldwide shipping at manscaped.com. Again, that is code Fanatics for 20% off and free worldwide shipping at manscaped.com. And of course, with the holidays just around the corner, Christmas is in like 12 days. My God. Head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Click the link tree in our bio. TeePublic comes up first, and we have plenty of DSM media merch on our site. We have 18 different designs with more coming shortly. We have 3 MV3, different MV3 designs for Bryce Harper. We have different show designs for some of the shows here on the Phaithful on DSM Media, and including the Phaithful Fanatic Show. We have 2 different DSM Media designs. We have a Jalen Hurts design. We have a Nick Sirianni design. So head on over to TeePublic. It's in our link tree, and enjoy, guys. And if you want to support any of the shows or any of the guys at DSM Media, that is how you can certainly do so. For myself, for Gint, and DSM Media, have a nice night.